Chapter 5, 1947 to 1952, Rebuilding the Program Post-War. A story in the Los Angeles Times extensively covered the drum majorette auditions of 1947. Referring to the band's decline during the Depression, the paper pointed out, "There was a time when anyone with a piccolo or perhaps even a comb and tissue paper who wanted to be in the band needed merely to nod yes." However, as the paper noted, this was no longer the case following the end of the war. Things have tightened up, and this year especially, as the new post-war program gets underway. The majorettes of 1947-48 had extensive twirling experience before joining the band. Martha Jackson, class of 48, began twirling at the age of 13, Joe Spalding, class of 48, at 12, and Janie and Joey Pope at 8. The Pope twins initially intended to attend USC, but were delighted that they chose UCLA, as the USC band did not feature drum majorettes at the time. Majorettes' absence. The band refrained from featuring majorettes after the 1947-48 season, much to the bewilderment of spectators. As the Westwood Hills Press noted, some believed the majorettes did not add anything to the musical success of the organization, which may have influenced the band's decision. The Westwood Hills Press reported the band received only one complaint for its decision to omit majorettes. However, a student wrote to the Daily Bruin calling for their return. Rumor has it that someone who has the say-so thought the Pope twins distracted the spectators' attention from the band. It seems to me that they helped to keep everyone's attention on it. The twins are identical, they are good-looking, and they are good majorettes. What more could we ask? I would like to see a little campaign started to get our majorettes back. Another letter from November 1948 stated, "An overwhelming number of Bruins feel that the great Bruin band is still sadly lacking, where," referring of course to the absence of last year's quartet of charming majorettes. No one to our knowledge has satisfactorily explained why the majorettes were dropped from the great Bruin band. Despite these passionate pleas, the majorettes failed to reappear. The band's new co-directors, C.B. Hunt and Patton McNaughton. A pair of new co-directors joined the band in 1947, as C.B. Hunt and Patton McNaughton succeeded Leroy Allen. Hunt and McNaughton shared directing duties over the course of the year. McNaughton directed the marching band in the fall, and Hunt conducted the symphonic band in the spring. Prior to serving as technical assistant to the University of Michigan Band, McNaughton had formerly been a school music teacher in Nebraska. McNaughton also worked in the radio and motion picture industry and served as an assistant to Leroy Allen in the fall of 1946. Before joining Allen, McNaughton toured with jazz legend Artie Shaw from 1943 to 46 and was featured on a selection of Shaw's recordings. After attending the Eastman School of Music and Northwestern University, Charles Brownlow C.B. Hunt left Vanderbilt's Peabody College in Nashville, Tennessee as assistant professor of music to direct the concert band at UCLA while working on his Ph.D. C.B. Hunt stayed at UCLA until 1949 when he received the first Ph.D. in music from UCLA and then returned to teach at Peabody College. Hunt served as chair while at Peabody before retiring in 1974. He also served as the principal clarinetist of the Nashville Symphony from 1946 to 1961. After retiring from Peabody, Hunt served as the dean of the College of Communications and Fine Arts at Southern Illinois University from 1974 to 83, and interim dean of the College of Fine Arts at Murray State University from 1986 to 88. Alumnus Ralph Schaefer warmly recalled the personalities of McNaughton and Hunt. McNaughton was a very personable individual. He was very friendly. We liked them both very much. McNaughton utilized local high schools as a valuable resource for recruiting members. We were trying like the devil to get the band up over 100 members, and it was only about a 60 or 70-piece band until then, McNaughton explained. CB and I just worked our tails off, the goal being a 100-piece band. We contacted just about every high school graduation of bandsmen and invited them to join us. And then we did some programs at high schools. Some of our programs we invited seniors from high schools to join our rehearsals and to join us at practice. By that time, I knew most of the band directors in the area. Ralph Schaefer, 1940s practice. Ralph Schaefer recalled the band holding music rehearsals in the late 1940s in Kirchhoff Hall and in a temporary bungalow on the northern edge of campus near the present-day location of the Young Research Library. In 47 when we started, we were practicing in Kirchhoff Hall in the Grand Salon. That was band rehearsal Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4 o'clock in 47, Schaefer recalled. The next year, we moved to one of the temporary buildings. We were in 3K7. That was the band room. The building, though temporary, offered the band more space to store music and instruments and also featured an office. McNaughton expands pre-game performances the Great Bruin Band. In 1947, the band's co-directors built the largest band the school had ever seen, as band membership totaled an impressive 128 members. Referred to as the Great Bruin Band, or often the Greater Bruin Band, the ensemble had nearly doubled in size over the course of a year. The post-war years arrived with a promising future and signaled a reversal of fortune from the doldrums that plagued the band in the 1930s and early 1940s. The band's sudden increase in members meant that the group had outgrown its practice space in the men's gymnasium and needed to relocate its practices. Gloria Olin wrote to the California Daily Bruin to raise awareness of the band's lack of rehearsal space. What's the reason that they have to stand out on the field and practice in the dark? The members tell me that they were assigned a room too small for half their number. In order to do a good job for us, they were forced to trot out to the field where seating and lighting are non-existent. Why must we deny them adequate practice conditions? Not even Superman could learn music, which he had to read in the dark. Let's show a little cooperation and interest in one of the best things we have on the campus. Let's give them some support and send out a top band to win honors for UCLA. Rehearsal rooms, like other good things, don't just happen. Flood the Bruin with letters in behalf of your Great Bruin Band. In response, the Student Executive Council provided the band with a circus tent in October 1947 until a permanent solution could be arranged. The sudden influx of members into the band posed equipment problems as well. At the beginning of the school year, it lacked 40 uniforms to outfit the entire ensemble. Though UCLA granted the group $1,578 for additional uniforms, they did not arrive until the USC game, which forced the band to improvise, substituting suit coats, pants, and cardigans in place of uniforms. Vincent Brown, publicity director of the band, wrote in 1947 that the band had outgrown its britches and called for amenities such as practice rooms, an equipment room, and lockers. Leroy Allen commented on the lack of accommodations for the Great Bruin Band. The lack of adequate rehearsal quarters and storage space soon became a serious problem, Allen explained. Various classrooms in the men's gymnasium were assigned from semester to semester for each of the three bands, but these were not satisfactory from the standpoints of acoustics or seating arrangements. Largely due to the efforts of Bill Ackerman and UCLA, the university built the band a temporary bungalow on the northern end of campus, which, as Ralph Schaefer recalled, was called Building 3K7. The band moved into the building on March 4, 1948. Band shows under McNaughton, 1947. The Greater Bruin Band, bolstered by an unprecedented number of members, introduced more complex halftime shows and expanded its pregame show during the post-war years under McNaughton. As the California Daily Bruin noted, the new band directors have outlined extensive plans for modernizing the Bruin organization. The band's new pre-game show included its famous Script UCLA formation, as well as a shortened performance of the national anthem. Instead of merely forming pictures at halftime, the band started performing thematic shows that often saluted the visiting team and featured more complex, animated drill. To provide an example of the band's innovative halftime shows, at the Iowa game, it performed a show entitled School Days, in which it sang School Days, formed three-letter R's which signified reading, writing, and arithmetic, played In a Little Red Schoolhouse while forming a schoolhouse, and enacted a teacher receiving an apple while performing In a Little Red Schoolhouse. Likewise, the band performed a show with the theme Underwater on October 11th at the Oregon game. During this show, drum major Gordon Wheatley used his baton to trace a cursive formation on the field, using band members as ink. The band then performed a sequence in which the Oregon Duck became trapped by a letter C, followed by the appearance of Joe Bruin. The band performed a similar show at the Washington game in November, during which it formed a rotating W, before forming the word dog, while playing Oh Where Has My Little Dog Gone? A student praised the revamped band in May, stating, "Granted, they are the best marching band in the land, but they are more too. A grin and hearty congratulations to one of UCLA's most up-and-coming organizations. Alumnus Ralph Schaefer recalled the details of band performances at UCLA basketball games in the late 1940s. The first time I remember the band was I went to a basketball game at the gym in '47 in the spring. The basketball games in those years were played in the men's gym. We were sitting up at one corner in a very small platform. We were there every time there was a game. A different group would show up. There weren't many of us, but enough to play. Instrumentation and uniforms of the great Bruin Band. Band manager Cliff Cole wrote to Will Connolly of the San Francisco Chronicle, detailing the instrumentation of the 1948 band. The personnel is composed of 3 flutes and piccolos, 1 oboe, 18 clarinets, 11 saxophones, 14 cornets, 9 trumpets, 8 horns, 11 trombones, 5 baritones, 4 sousaphones, 2 glockenspiels, 1 cymbal, 4 snare drums, 1 bass drum, 2 co-directors, 1 drum major, 1 twirler, 2 band photographers, and 5 general assistants, a total of 103. The 1948 band was also the first year the band featured assistant drum majors. Cole also described how the band used 2 sets of uniforms. It primarily wore its standard military uniform, reserving a second cardigan jacket uniform for casual affairs. In the late 1940s, UCLA concentrated on forming its own identity with the goal of distinguishing itself from Cal, its northern counterpart. The school's newspaper removed the word California from its masthead in 1947, and the band also discontinued the practice of playing Cal fight songs. In 1948, a student inquired as to why the band no longer played Cal's fight song, Fight for California, a song also known by the title of Our Sturdy Golden Bear. Cole responded, "It was felt that UCLA is big enough to fight for itself now, and suggested by Bill Ackerman that we concentrate on our own schools." Instead, the band routinely performed tunes such as Blues in the Night and Glenn Miller's arrangement of St. Louis Blues. The band's first recruiting film. In February 1948, the band announced plans to film its first recruiting film. The Daily Bruin stated, "While nothing definite has been arranged, plans for a moving picture of the band to be used as an educational aid to schools throughout the country are being formulated. The picture, if done, will use the members of the band for the cast and will show the manifold activities of the band from academic to social life." The unrivaled spirit of the great Bruin Band. Daily Bruin writer Stan Bachrach praised the band's demonstration of indomitable school spirit at Berkeley in 1948, despite the football team's loss in the contest. Prior to the game's kickoff, the band crowded outside the team's locker room, cheering and playing for 15 minutes. The band did the same after its halftime performance, playing, quote, "By the Old Pacific's Rolling Waters" for the team. Most remarkable to Bachrach, however, was the band's unconditional support and spirit for its university. Has a Bruin band ever played by while standing between the goal and 20-yard line within speaking distance of the players? Has a Bruin rooting section ever mobbed the bench after a lost game and carried off as many members of the squad as they could get on their shoulders? And how long has it been since a Bruin coach, whose team has lost 5 games, been cheered and assured that he will have their support? A comparison of Big Ten and Pacific Coast bands. Following the halftime performances of the Cal and Northwestern bands at the 1949 Rose Bowl, Pete Matz, class of '50, remarked in the Daily Bruin on the differences between bands from the Big Ten Conference and those from the Pacific Coast Conference. Although Matz contended, the great Bruin Band has established a place for itself among the best of the football bands in the West, he admitted. Nothing like the Northwestern Wildcat Band was seen or heard at Coast football games this year. Tempo marked one of the most significant differences between the Midwest and Pacific Coast ensembles. The Northwestern Band marched at 192 beats per minute, while bands on the West Coast marched at around 68 beats per minute. Additionally, Metz noted that the Northwestern Band, quote, "executed all its movements from an unusual spread formation, while the Cal Band did its fancy steps from the standard block lineup, with the result that the last few ranks had to break into a run." Metz also noted that the Northwestern Band was louder, stating, quote, "The Northwestern outfit gets a bigger sound than the Cal Band." Matz's observations serve to highlight the stylistic differences of the period between Midwest and Pacific Coast bands. Football coach Red Sanders. The band welcomed head football coach Henry Russell Red Sanders to UCLA by performing a show dedicated to Sanders during his coaching debut against Washington State. The band formed the word coach while performing California Here I Come, and it also played You Gotta Be a Football Hero while forming an inflating football. The band performed at a rally held at Coach Sanders' house in December 1949. The 2,500 students present hoped that the rally would dissuade Sanders from reportedly considering a job offer from the University of Florida. Sanders told the crowd outside his apartment, "Whoever said I was leaving?" Sanders remained UCLA's head coach until his death in 1958. Ralph Schaefer. Buses failed to arrive for first game of 1949 football season. During Schaefer's tenure as manager from 1949-50, he experienced an unfortunate transportation difficulty on game day, as the band's Greyhound buses failed to arrive after a Saturday pregame practice. "I was ordering the buses and no one ever explained to me the situation. I turned in the requisitions and so forth to stand down at the Associated Students' office. I assumed that they then called Greyhound, but they didn't. They said that it was supposed to be my job." Schaefer lamented. "So here we got through with our rehearsal, and there were no buses out there in Westwood to take us to the game." Luckily, band member Cliff Cole had an idea. Cliff Cole was still in the band that year, and he organized a carpool from Fraternity Row, explained Schaefer. He called all the fraternities. They came over and everyone got to the game. The concert band premieres 5 compositions in 1949. In May of 1949, the UCLA concert band premiered 5 compositions in Royce Hall. All 5 pieces were written for and dedicated to the UCLA concert band. Composer Roy Harris's The Fruit of Gold made its debut, which commemorated the 100th anniversary of the California Gold Rush. Other pieces premiered included Healy Willen's Royce Hall Suite, Boris Kremenliev's 3 Village Sketches, Harold Kidder's Capital Sketches, and Kendall Capp's Symphony for Band. Alfred E. Newman conducts the concert band in 1950. On May 29, 1950, at its annual spring concert, the UCLA Symphonic Band welcomed renowned composer Alfred E. Newman to Royce Hall as a guest conductor. The concert, organized by band member Herbert "Herb" Wise Class of 50, featured Newman conducting selections from the film score Captain from Castile. The Symphonic Band also invited 6 high school seniors to play with the group at its last concert, recognizing them for their extraordinary musicianship. Ralph Schaefer recalled the event stating, "Royce Hall was full. Frankly, the name Alfred Newman did it, the fact that we were playing Conquest." In April 1950, the 85-piece symphonic band began a tour of local high schools during the campus's spring break. The band visited Beverly Hills High School, John Adams High School, Compton Junior College, and Linwood High School. Concluding its tour on April 29th, the band performed at the Pomona Fairgrounds along with the All-Southern California High School Band. Under McNaughton, the concert band focused on performing contemporary musical works, and renowned trombonist Lloyd Ulliate, who had achieved fame with Ray McKinley and Jimmy Dorsey's bands, performed with the band. Ralph Schaefer recalled the tour stating, quote, "Everyone went in their own private cars. Normally we played regular concert music, but mostly it was much lighter music. Pat McNaughton tried to make it an educational kind of thing. He would give a very brief lecture of sorts before something was played." 1950 football season. For the 1950 season, the band introduced a number of innovations. Most notably, the band adopted the high-step marching style. Additionally, for its pre-game routine, the band marched in a block UCLA formation across the field. Altering its appearance, the band added gold gloves and shoes to its military uniforms. The band's shift to high-stepping provoked a response from students. One student wrote to the Daily Bruin stating, "I here lift my voice of criticism to the new way in which the band pranced on the field last Saturday at the Coliseum." Another student, citing the military nature of the high step, jokingly wrote to the paper stating, quote, "Now we will have a highly skilled mobile unit to protect the school from invasion." The band performed an extensive Disney-themed halftime show on September 30th. While performing Hi-Ho, band members spelled Disney using their plumes, which remained on the field for the duration of the show. The band subsequently formed a pig, playing Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf, and then a slipper while performing Cinderella's The Work Song. The band followed these tunes with When You Wish Upon a Star, Dead Man's Chest, and Dukas's The Sorcerer's Apprentice, before closing the show by performing By the Old Pacific's Rolling Waters in a block UCLA formation. For its 1950 trip to Berkeley, the band sought an alternative form of transportation, flight. McNaughton chartered 2 DC-4 airplanes from Western Airlines, with each plane holding 66 passengers. The band left at 6 a.m. on Friday, November 10th, and arrived in Oakland 2 hours later. On Sunday, it flew back to Los Angeles from San Francisco, arriving at 5:30 a.m. The annual High School Band Day, in which local high school bands were invited to perform with the band, was held on November 3, 1950. 7 high schools and 2 junior colleges joined the band in performing an Armed Forces-themed halftime show. The combined ensemble performed songs including Columbia, the Gem of the Ocean, U.S. Field Artillery March, Anchors Aweigh, Marines Hymn, Army Air Corps March, and America the Beautiful, while assembling formations such as a cannon, anchor, and outline of the United States. Gilbert "Gil" Robbins led the band as drum major in 1949 and 1950, serving as the head of the band's stunt committee before joining the Air Force in 1951. Robbins, father of actor Tim Robbins, later achieved fame as a musician in the folk band The Highwaymen and as an actor. Ralph Schaefer's Jeep mishap, 1951. While the symphonic band was rehearsing in Royce Hall for its upcoming concert in the spring of 1951, members of the band played a prank on manager Ralph Schaefer. On a Sunday morning, Schaefer parked his Jeep near the loading dock behind Royce Hall before attending the rehearsal. Following the rehearsal, Schaefer returned only to find his Jeep missing. Upon asking where his Jeep went, members of the band told him, "Why don't you look in the foyer of the auditorium?" Schaefer, shocked at what he found, stated, "So I went down the hallway into the foyer out there toward the quad. There's my red Jeep in the lobby of Royce Hall. They had pushed it quietly down there. I remember starting the engine, and I don't know whether I drove it out, but I'm sure it was the first time any Jeep was in the lobby. They were always doing things to my Jeep, removing all the spark plugs, moving the wires around." Student poll. In the spring of 1951, the Bureau of Student Opinion polled students to determine their attitudes towards the band. Specifically, the survey sought to determine students' opinions of the band's gold shoes, the band's name, and band arrangements. The poll found that the majority of students liked the band's uniforms, but disliked its gold shoes and gold pants. Regarding the band's name, 49% of students polled found the Greater Bruin Band moniker to be too egotistical. Instead, students favored the name Bruin Band. 43% of students polled expressed satisfaction with the band's arrangements, though students complained about the intro of the alma mater and By the Old Pacific. Robert Fleury replaces Patton McNaughton. As Patton McNaughton departed in 1951, the university hired Robert M. Fleury, who had previously held the position of assistant band director at the University of Wisconsin. During the transitional period, the student staff oversaw the band's day-to-day operations and prepared the group for its first performance of the season at the Texas A&M game. The Daily Bruin noted, Fleury found, upon his arrival to campus, that students had assumed the initiative in readying the band for its fall season. When the university announced Patton McNaughton's retirement, band members became immensely upset, according to Ralph Schaefer. The band even considered going on strike once more but relented after receiving a warning from university officials. "I do remember someone in administration told us, 'Do not strike, we're not going to stand for that,' and we did not," Schaefer recalled. There was somewhat of a nationwide search for a band director, and there was an organized student effort to keep McNaughton. Schaefer recalled one of the band's saxophone players established a movement to retain McNaughton as the director. "We sent out letters all over the country to people to write to the UCLA administration about how good McNaughton was, how good the band was, and so forth. We got all kinds of letters, dozens, maybe 100 letters from directors and other people around, and it had no effect, unfortunately," Schaefer pointed out. Band members resented the fact that McNaughton was not rehired. There was nothing really against Fleury that came in. Many band members expressed their loyalty to McNaughton by not returning for the 1951-52 season. In an October 1951 Daily Bruin editorial, Bob Myers pointed out that UCLA band membership has dwindled to but 30 people, hardly a sufficient number to put even a pep group into operation. The situation has been so bad this fall that Robert Fleury, the new bandmaster, has had to rely upon band alumni and high school recruits to fill out the ranks. Notable gigs for the 1951-1952 season included performances at the Westwood Village Theater's grand reopening, a Memorial Day ceremony at 20th Century Fox, and the dedication of the UCLA Medical School. The band wore new uniforms, which consisted of gold Eisenhower jackets with blue trousers and gold stripe, blue and gold cap, and shoulder patch resembling a helmeted Bruin. At the homecoming parade, the band wore Hawaiian shirts, a precursor to the Aloha shirts worn by the varsity band in the 1990s and 2000s. Prior to the 1951 USC game, a Daily Bruin reporter traded barbs with a Daily Trojan reporter. UCLA student Shelley Lowenkoff wrote, "The badly outclassed SC band will stand little chance against the great Bruin band in the halftime game. Most of the SC band was forced to pawn their instruments to hire professional football players for the biggest game. As a result, most of their music will come from combs and tissue paper. Also be sure to notice that the tubas and other remaining brass instruments are turning green." In response, Bob English of the Daily Trojan wrote, "The pitiful Bruins will attempt to equal this unequaled display by unashamedly exposing to public view a disorganized group of disharmonic clowns which is satirically called the Great Bruin Band. It is this reporter's opinion that they look more like a group of taxicab drivers on strike and sound worse." Maxon F. Judell's campaign for strike. Beginning in the late 1940s, Maxon F. Judell wrote a series of lengthy letters to UCLA officials, including Bill Ackerman, director of Associated Students, and Patton McNaughton, UCLA band director, begging the band to play "Strike Up the Band" for UCLA more often. In one of his first letters to Bill Ackerman, Judell expressed his discontent regarding UCLA's failure to play "Strike Up the Band" for UCLA. Pointing out that the USC band had played a Gershwin medley, he urged Ackerman to take action. "It's all up to you, Bill. If the Trojans can, in the face of UCLA having Strike Up the Band for UCLA, go all out for Gershwin, it's high time that UCLA did. Right? Strike her up, Bill." Judell then pleaded with McNaughton to play the tune more frequently. "I hope that you'll sink your teeth into the strike tune more than ever and get a deserved, sensational reaction." In order to demonstrate the song's significance, Judell took the entire band to MGM Studios for a screening of the film Strike Up the Band. "The several playings of the tune should indicate what can be done with the tune," Judell wrote. He then asked McNaughton and Hunt to meet with him and consider all possibilities of the tune. Judell praised the band for playing the tune in October 1949. "Your brasses and horns sounded most effectively. The playing of the number came too, when after a short yell you had the stadium quiet, and thus giving you a good play." However, Judell was not satisfied with one performance of the tune at a football game. Why not consider the thought of playing it about 3 times during entire first and second halves? Strike is a grand march, and also possesses a hell of a lot of color and seamanship as a tune. When Robert Fleury succeeded McNaughton in 1951, Judell resumed his correspondence, informing Fleury that he had secured the talents of William Lava to write a new arrangement of "Strike Up the Band" for UCLA. Months later, Judell told Fleury that he spoke with a top New York Times executive who thought it was a disgrace that a Bruin band should not play Strike even once. Not once. Not even once. A week later, Judell informed Fleury that he had contacted Ed Sullivan, columnist for the New York Daily News and future television host. "I wrote Ed this week saying you were having a noon concert March 21st. We'll premiere the new arrangement of Strike as such, and the specially written introduction, etc." And to give the event an item in his syndicated column. In one of his final letters to Fleury, Judell mentioned that Sullivan had featured the blurb about the band in his column. Who else but Max and Judell would have thought of the item for Sullivan and, 1 out of 1, get it in his column? It shows you the power of the tune. When Dr. Clarence Sawhill arrived at UCLA in the following months, Judell's pleas for the band to perform "Strike Up the Band" more often would finally be heard. Under Sawhill's direction, the band regularly incorporated the tune into its pre-game performances. In 1952, Judell expressed concern about the band being overshadowed by the USC band, then under the direction of Clarence Sawhill. "There is no question that the SC band is the one to beat out here, and they conduct themselves with good show, and they always get good write-ups from the sports press. So, musically and public relationship and Presley, you have one asset that's tops. Such an asset, may I say, that SC in the years here has approached me several times as to getting strike away from UCLA and giving it to them. They stressed they'd play it better, use it more often, etc. When Lucien Caillier headed the SC band 5 to 6 years ago, he played Strike Up the Band for UCLA twice at the UCLA-USC football game and made monkeys out of the Bruin band. Larry Gordon published an article in the Los Angeles Times on March 20, 2008 about the use of strike at UCLA through the years.